Assets, an essential subject from Vinipedia. One should learn gravity from the sea and the rivulet. The sea is always within its limits, in spite of the many rivers pouring water into it. Similarly, one should properly use the assets of life and not squander them for purposes that have no permanent value. Uncontrolled, sensuous persons play with the assets of the body and accumulate wealth. But the strength of the body should be used for self-realization, not for sense gratification. Human beings have two kinds of temperament. Some are introspective and the others are extravagant. Those who are extravagant are enamored of the external features of phenomenal beauty and have no insight into the whole manifestation. They are practically asleep to introspection, and thus they are unable to derive any permanent value from the assets of the human form of body. Srila Prabhupada's books, lectures, conversations and letters offer a comprehensive presentation of this essential subject as seen in the Viniko's assets category. An introduction from his books is given below in the following 8 quotes. Quotes from Srila Prabhupada's books. A man becomes attached to a woman because of her service, her beauty and many other assets, and similarly a woman becomes attached to a man for his giving her a nice place to live, ornaments, dress and children. It is a question of attachment for one another. As long as either is attached to the other for such material enjoyment, the woman is dangerous for the man, and the man is also dangerous for the woman. Armad Bh Gavatam 3.31 42. Since he has nothing to do with anything material, what pleasure can he derive from material benedictions like kingship or other overlordships, which are finished quickly with the end of the body? Devotional service is eternal. It has no end, because it is spiritual. Therefore, since the assets of a pure devotee are completely different from material assets, there is no comparison between the two. Armad Bh Gavatam 1.18 31. Bhakti Yoga, however, is so powerful that it does not depend on Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga. Bhakti Yoga itself is so powerful that even an impious man with no assets in Karma Yoga or an illiterate with no assets in Jnana Yoga can undoubtedly be elevated to the spiritual world if he simply adheres to Bhakti Yoga. Mmivyasyasaya. K says in Bhagavad Gita 8.7 that by the process of Bhakti Yoga one undoubtedly goes back to Godhead, back home to the spiritual world. Armad Bh Gavatam 6.1 1. The good position one attains by executing religious principles is wasted as the plundering senses take it away. By executing religious principles under the laws of Vararama Dharma, one is placed in a comfortable position. One may very easily use his assets for the further advancement of Kaya consciousness. One should understand that the wealth and opportunity one gets in the material world should not be squandered in sense gratification. They are meant for the advancement of Kaya consciousness. Armad Bh Gavatam 5.14 2. This system of association has been recommended since time immemorial, but in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy it is especially recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even if one has no assets of favorable austerity, if he nevertheless takes shelter of the Madhyams who are engaged in chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, he is sure to make progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. Armad Bh Gavatam 3.7 20. All educated and wealthy persons must join this movement, since money and education are meant for service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If money and education are not engaged in the service of the Lord, these valuable assets must be engaged in the service of MY. The education of so-called scientists, philosophers and poets is now engaged in the service of MY, and the wealth of the rich is also engaged in MY's service. The service of MY, however, creates a chaotic condition in the world. Armad Bh Gavatam 7.14 16. If one has no connection with Nidai, Balarma, then even though one is a very learned scholar or Jain or has taken birth in a very respectable family, these assets will not help him. We must therefore conquer the enemies of Kaya consciousness with the strength received from Balarma. Armad Bh Gavatam 7.15 45. If the father is in debt he is considered to be an enemy. If the mother has selected another husband in the presence of her grown-up children, she is considered to be an enemy. If a wife does not live well with her husband but deals very roughly, then she is an enemy. And if a son is a fool, he is also an enemy. In family life, father, mother, wife and children are assets, but if the wife or mother accepts another husband in the presence of her husband or son, then, according to Vedic civilization, she is considered an enemy. Armad Bh Gavatam 3.23 3.